what came to me yesterday is that we have got to stop thinking negatively about people. We have got to stop talking negatively about people, just period. Because every time something is said, they did this, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never, but words do. And they do create an imprint. That's why oral transmission is so important, to hear something and it sinks into the soil of your being and it leaves an imprint there. So we harm people even if they never heard what we said, even if they had no inkling of what we thought. I think lots of things that I'd be ashamed for you to even know I thought about you, I mean, because I'm human, but this, I'm feeling a sense of urgency that allows the laying down of some things. And this ideal that we have, this bodhisattva ideal, what is it that makes it possible? What makes it successful? How will we reach our goal? And so I was posed that question yesterday, and I just stayed with that one question all day long. All day long. Everything I read, everything I saw, I'm in the bed a lot right now, and I get tired of reading, I get tired of listening. Then I'll turn on the TV for a little while and I'll watch something. But everything I was watching, listening to, thinking about was through the lens of what is a true bodhisattva mind? What kind of mind is that? And what I started coming to is, Pannavati, who is she? What kind of person is that? So every time I looked out there to try to see something, to penetrate something, to understand something, it was not possible. It just kept reflecting, but I was like bounced right back into myself. So every question that I have about, the secrets of the universe or whatever, no matter what question, it bounced back to everything became a mirror that I could see Pannavati. Now, this was not in a condemning way. It was in such a heartful way of wanting, as if the whole universe wanted to give me my heart's desire, the aspiration that I have not been able to work into up to this day. But yet it knew the yearning and the aspiration that I had, and it was giving it back to me by showing me the one principal thing. I've been working for some months, maybe 6 months now, on non-differentiation and, like not separating good and bad. And, and that's a slippery slope. I mean, you just have to be approaching that with the right, from the right space to come out the other end of that in the right place. It's not that everything, it's not, I was going to say not that everything is permissible, but everything is not expedient. It's more than that. For some people, what would be permissible for some is not permissible for others. So that's the two, sides of that. So there was a time I could acknowledge everything is permissible, but everything is not expedient. And then I learned right and wrong, and now I'm at everything is not permissible, for me. And so we grow incrementally like that. But then once we decide what's not permissible for ourselves, then we make that not permissible for anybody else. That's where we mess up right there, when we flip off of ourselves and latch on to, others. And I don't mean like just in this like narrow sense, like your family and what you think about them, especially the ones that have hurt you, or your friends, or your frenemies, or your, it's not those kinds of relationships, but it expands all the world way to what I think about political figures I have something against, or whose views don't align with mine. It's finding that space in the middle where one doesn't lean to the left or to the right, allows one to be able to make an aspiration from that mind, and the benefits will come on the level of that mind. So if I have a hating mind and I'm thinking something, whatever actions, whatever activities, come, whether they be beneficial or unbeneficial, will be on the basis of the level of virtue of that mind. So when I'm in a non-differentiating place, then whatever actions, whatever activities arise as a byproduct of that initial thought will be based on the virtue of that mind. And so I was thinking about what is the best way to help people in a time when the world is so troubled. And I guess we can't always say, like, we always think that whatever trouble is happening in our time is the worst that has ever been, but I'm sure they felt that way in the old days too, and they felt that way in the 1500s, and they felt that way in 500 BC, and they felt that way in 5000 BC, and whatever time, whatever bad things were going on, I'm sure they felt that this was the worst. And of course, we also feel that way, and maybe due to the acceleration of in part of technology, where our virtue doesn't keep pace with our capacity to create or bring things into existence. I mean, we're bringing things into existence, but we're bringing them into existence based on the limitations, of our minds. So the best thing that we could do would be to develop for world peace, for peace at home here, for peace in our family, for peace, for peace. The best thing that we could do, better than demonstrating, better than picketing, you could even say better than writing better laws. I mean, when I started working in India, the anti-atrocity law had been in place for 50 years. Again, liberating the untouchables. But in practice, it wasn't being carried out. But the law was already on the books, so we didn't need another law. But we needed it to be possible to carry out the law in the hearts of men. And so this sutra that I mentioned on Sunday, what's the name of it, Joe?
Golden Light.
The Sutra of Golden Light.
Which version of that did you want to get?
I really wasn't familiar with it. It came up because I was asking what's the best way to comfort and redirect people's minds concerning peace in the world, and peace with their fellow man. What is a practice that we could really do? And somehow I ran across that was this as the answer to, I throw things out to the universe, I throw them out to Buddha Master, I throw them out to the holy beings. I just throw the question out if anybody's listening, you know, and invariably I get what I feel like is an answer or direction in which to go or some way to start. It might start here, but I'm just on A of this. But if I keep following those breadcrumbs, I will get to the answer that I posed. And so that's how I basically get my answers. They come as a result of the inquiry. I just make the inquiry. And so I ran across this, and as I started reading it, it affected me the same way the King of Prayers affects me. And this is pretty long. I think it's around 100 pages. But I did find, and I have confidence in a lot of Lama Zopa's teachings, the FPMT translations. They are in the process of translating it into English. I think they've translated it into like 50 different languages. And it has been, it's part of 67,000 people have done the recitation. And they even have recitation groups. And Lama Zopa was saying, this is a better way to serve the world and to usher in peace by leaving these imprints in the minds of people, so that from the inside out, they can just that place of peace is truly in them. That's what will come out of them. And so, and it went on to say that this particular sutra was not just for world peace. It started with for when you have no personal peace. It can be due to catastrophe, disaster, unexpected losses, troubles with loved ones. You know, it started at the most personal level and went all the way up. So that's why it's so long, because it covers like basically everything that in this life you could encounter. And the Bodhisattvas were so patient. They went through all of it, you know, just bit by bit, step by step. And the Bodhisattvas of the highest bhumis were instructing, because Bodhisattvas of the lower levels were posing questions. You know, and they were saying, well, how do I uproot this? Or how do I work with that? Can you give me a teaching on this? Can you give me a teaching? Then say, like, I'm a bodhisattva now. Like, I'll pray for all those ordinary humans, you know, but it was the bodhisattvas that were intensely inquiring, you know, how they could participate in the betterment of the world. And so this sutra from the Buddha answers this question, the kind of mind that you have to have that will change circumstances. And so we're all looking for that. We can say that we're not, you know, but we are. We're looking to be able to change the course and the nature of events for the better. We're looking to bring about restoration of things that are lost. We're looking to bring about things that we desire that bring joy and harmony to others. We're looking to uproot whatever causes us fear and anxiety, what causes others fear and anxiety. If I could just say a word in season that would help them, you know. We're looking, so this is all about what our whole life is all about. That has been, you know, encapsulated, the aspirations for it encapsulated in this one sutra. And it said, even if you didn't read the whole sutra, even if you just read a portion of it, it would have such innumerable positive effects because it is planting the seeds or leaving the imprint of the words being uttered. It's leaving it imprinted on your psyche, leaving it imprinted, heart or your mind stream. And there will take root, and some will bear flowers today, later tonight, tomorrow, the next day, next week, next month, next year, a decade from now, next life even. And so, I decided that because Lama Yeshe Zopa, right? Zopa Rinpoche, he had a special request concerning this. Of all the sutras, this was the one that he felt would do the most good in helping to bring peace. And so he wanted to make it available to everyone, Buddhist, non-Buddhist. I mean, it doesn't matter. Those are just labels. It doesn't make it available for everybody to be able to recite. So this part of the lineage teaching, he made a vow that he would recite it and that anybody who listened to his recitation. I think when I went to the website, it said listen to, but it could have been listened to or read. I'm not sure. I'm going to check again. But I think it was who listened to him imparted as Loon or oral transmission would be able to transmit it to others.
There's a place I can listen to it now? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's on FPMT, is that the right connection? FPMT's website. It might be rough to listen to, because he's Tibetan and his English is not good, but I'm going to read it in more depth to make sure, because if you've read it, his translation, and he considered it the same as listening to it. And I think we have some precept and example for that, things that we've listened to, and now we are reading, right? And I'll clarify this next week. If I'm gonna, then you can read it, and I'm setting up for it to be read through the end of this year. So we've got what, 2 weeks, a little bit over 2 weeks to read it. And when I get back home today, I'm gonna outline and lay it down in reading form so everybody can read it. And the days, like if we do just 2 pages a day, I'm sorry, do you hear that? You don't hear?
Yes.
Can you turn this is my diabetes is talking to me. Just turn it off. I get it. And the more people that do it, the more it multiplies the effect of the merit. And if he requires that it be transmitted through Loom first, which is listening to it being read, I will listen. I will listen to it, and then and then send the transmission out. So I purchased like 10 copies of it today, so that I could send it out and people don't have to search all over for it. It's just I'm sorry. It wasn't on the phone, it's on my body.
It's okay. It doesn't come.
Okay. Yeah. No, thank you. No, thank you. I'm good. So right now, where I am is we're closing out the year and deeply reflecting our on this past year and the aspirations we started the year with, and checking to see where we are and what how well we did, and where we think we need more work, and where we have satisfied some things, and where we have new questions coming up. This is an important time to do this before we get to the new year. In the softness of our hearts, the gentleness with others, and the care for others, in care for ourselves, and gentleness with ourselves. And we can only give people what we give ourselves. So a lot of people try to love others so hard, but you gotta love yourself, because that's all you can give, is what you know. You can't give what you don't know. And for me, I think I worked on that for a lot, so much that I can't understand when people don't love themselves. It's hard for me because I worked so hard on it, because from a child I felt, unloved. I was the accident of the family that came along, I don't know, 5 or 6 years after everybody else. And they never let me know that I didn't really belong, that I was the accident. And so, but I had to take care of that myself. I had to really not shut out those voices, but I had to love people who found it difficult to love me or found me unlovable. And because I could do that, it set me up to be able to be with others, to really, really think about others, to really, this kind of compassion that the Bodhisattvas have is not a personal kind of touchy-feely compassion at all. It's not like that. It's like just walking past and you're seeing something that needs doing, and you have the capacity to do it, and you just do it, and you keep on walking. No, Buddha Master calls it spontaneous. It's not like we think about it and make our plan and execute it. I'm not saying that plans don't have to be made to do things, but I'm saying it's not personal in the sense that one personally identifies with the suffering going on. So it's not tied into so much into our feelings as it is. It's hard for me to find a word about to use. If evil is what takes you away from your goal and keeps you from reaching your goal, it's the opposite of that. I like to deal in opposites now, instead of making other words. But if I take evil, then I'll take non-evil, but I won't take like good. It's just whatever makes it clear to me that this is unwholesome, then what would be the opposite of how I'm thinking right now? What would be the opposite of how I'm feeling right now? What would be the opposite of how I am acting right now, the behavior? So if it's fear, then I'd be thinking about non-fear. And sometimes to get to non-fear, you have to get to what you're fearing. If it's fear of loss, then what action, what activity, or what thought do I have to have right now? That's the opposite of that feeling of loss that I have. And it can be different things for different people. So for instance, for me, the opposite of loss could be gain. So I'm counting my blessings, counting what I do have. The opposite of loss would be to think about, and that's one way. So that's loss and say gain. Another way would be loss and thinking about when I leave this life, everything that seemed so important to me and that wore me out mentally, whether it was loss of a loved one, loss of something that I have, whether it was loss of status and stature. I mean, I've been dealing with it for the past maybe couple of years, that I'm coming up to the end of, and coming up to the end of my life, more limitations are presenting, that I can't do what I did when I was 30 or what I did when I was 40 or 50 or 60 or 70. Up until all those years, I thought I could do the same. But now it's obvious to me that I can't. So in a sense, it's a sense of loss. So I said, well, geez, I didn't even realize that there's some self-grasping in there about like, well, if I'm not a Dharma teacher, who am I? Who will I be? What shall I do? Suppose I last 10 more years. What will I do with that time? And so, I mean, it starts getting finer and finer and finer. So a person approaching retirement, so they find 10 things to do and cut their life short because they're trying to do at 80 what they could do at 40, And so I'm saying it gets very, life becomes like a mirror around everything, and now I regret that I didn't look even deeper 20 or 30 years ago, because now I still have more time to investigate at the level I want to investigate, but I may not have the time now. So then what? Then you just have to accept that you don't have the time and figure out, how do I spend this time? And it might not be the thing that one thought of when they had a lot of time, and so this is how our life goes. And you could find your day full in reflection, so much that you don't have time to worry about others, And who would think that not worrying about others could actually be a benefit to others, I mean, because worry doesn't come into it. Worrying about others with an impure mind actually creates more problems for others, So the best way that you could address your concern for others is not worrying about them. That's hard for adult parents who have adult children, because they're still trying to, run their children's lives. They only want what's best for them, But the best way to help them is for you to take care of your own. So this old Zen saying, I can't remember it now. What is it? I know you know. To know the Dharma is to know the 10,000 things. Something like to know the 10,000 things is to know yourself, and to know yourself is to forget yourself. It's something like I should know. I've quoted it for 50 years, but I'll look it up and I'll share it with you in the next class. But at the end of it, it is knowing yourself and then forgetting the self. And in that way, one comes to know the 10,000 things. And so we should take an assessment as we're approaching our years. And I've never been one for that kind of catchy stuff, like New Year's resolution and reflecting at the end of the year. But after finding this sutra, I think it's a delicious idea. I need the phone back now. The reason I had it was I wanted to read a little section for us today. We're moving this year into, starting in January, into a different aspect of practice. And this is this one. The chapters. She did it for me though. Okay. Give me 1 second. Confessions chapter. This is not the whole chapter. On the chapter on aspirations. Is that the on the Golden Light Sutra? But where we're going to spend some time cultivating this coming year is in our aspiration. It lays the basis for our conduct. It's like trying to be good, and as if being good was like baking a cake and you don't have all the ingredients. You're not gonna come out with a cake. It may be more like cornbread. It may be more like, you just
pudding.
Yeah, pudding. So it's going to be practice that's not so much intellectual. I think we needed some language project to kind of get, like into the stream. And now we're going to actually be doing practices that transform us. And what comes after that will be, initiations into specific practices of different holy beings according to one's interest or desire. And this is what in Vajrayana we call Dharma, not the languaging, but it's the actual practice of becoming a particular bodhisattva or particular manifestation of virtue, compassion, and power. So we spend time sitting as if that mind is our mind. And then we come out of it and go about our normal everyday business. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, but it won't.
It doesn't matter.
It won't
It's
pick up.
fine.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have a pump on that's empty. So, and it's beeping to let me know it's getting louder. It gets louder and louder. And so this is the confession chapter on the section on aspiration. And it says, by the sound of this majestic drum, and just reading that first line, by the sound of this majestic drum. And then all of a sudden, I just imagine, like this big drum, and it's sounding, and I'm listening to the sound of it. Now he's not talking about a drum, that's just the image that comes up in my mind. He's talking about a call, the drum producing a sound that captures one's, attention, the And so it's right there by the sound of this majestic drum. May beings always find the company of Buddhas, thoroughly renouncing every harmful act. May they engage in only virtuous deeds. So now in my own lineup, not pre-framing for you, but suddenly the sound of the drum means I'm bringing my attention in. My aspiration is rising up. It's making itself known, you know, by the sound of this majestic drum. May beings always find the company of Buddhas. So I'm always looking and I'm searching for that Kalyana Mitra, that spiritual friend. Thoroughly renouncing every harmful act, they engage in only virtuous deeds. So now I'm giving up my right to be right, my right to be justified. And my mind will go back to something that what comes to me, you know, something I said, something I did, something I thought about. And it begins to bring an aspiration to make that thing right. This is very personal, but I don't believe in faking it. And I had a fallout with my sister 20 years ago, 18 years ago. And I have liked things just as they are. I don't need her to love me. I don't need her to like me. You know, I'm no longer hurt by it. But it's like, yeah, I'm just totally fine with it. But when I read that, it told me that I needed to call her. And I would say, there's no point in me calling her before if I don't really, really mean it, really want to talk to her. And I don't. No, I just feel okay with things like they are. She was somebody I knew for 30 years or whatever, and because I'm not. If something was harmful to me, I could step out of it. I didn't have to stay in it hating them or being hurt by them. And I feel fulfilled if I never see her again, if I never talk to her again, and not because I have an issue with her, because I no longer have an issue with her. But when I read this, it says, okay, but that's you. But you don't know, her husband's continually sending me every year. He sends me, a message. It's time for you all to bury the hatchet, get over this. And he doesn't know anything about me because he's not with me. I haven't seen him for as long as I haven't seen her, But obviously there's something there with her.
It must be coming up because he's mentioning it.
Right.
Yeah.
Every year. And so that's so when I thought, I said, oh, I need to call my dear sister. And I'm going to do that. For those who are without refuge, without base, without support or friend, may I become their supreme refuge. May I become their base. May I become their support. May I become their friend. And just thinking about that and letting whatever arises arise for you. And you can face it without any kind of fear, without making anything big out of it, But I mean, like, if there's anything left undone, can you take care of it? I could think of some others, and it would not be good to initiate, a contact. Some it's better to just leave it like it is. One person I'm thinking of, it's better to leave it because she will accept my friendship, but she will abuse me because that's where she is. That's where her mind is. And no matter what you do, she uses that to manipulate you. So it's best to just, or try to manipulate. It just causes unwholesomeness to arise, and it's best to leave that alone. Yes.
I appreciate what you're sharing because I had that direct experience with my mother, where it was just let sleeping dogs fly. There was no benefit or harm in just laying down that relationship. Until the Dharma speaks to you different and you realize that potentially that person out of nowhere, my mother out of nowhere contacted me, and I sat with that text. And I'm a quick responder, and I sat with that. And in that pause, I realized this isn't about me at all. This is about her having to do her work and come to a healing space for her or whatever it was that she needed. And that's when I responded to the text, because I realized that was the correct next step, without desiring whether or not there was anything player in that for me, without an attachment to the, oh, I did this, but to recognize this is her karma that she's working through. There is something she clearly needed to receive. And it was mine to give. Just
Yeah, and the thing is that we might have to study it once and study it twice, because I don't always take the first thought that comes to my mind. The first one I tossed out because I think that's probably why she just jumped right in front gab, and she's directing all of this. So usually the first thing that comes to my mind, I look to see what's in that for me, whether it's what a good girl am I, or I think I'm maybe so developed and she has no spiritual practice, or, all those kinds of things. And scrape off that layer of dross and and then see what comes after. And if it's something that pricks me or makes me a little uncomfortable in approaching, then I just keep sitting with that until it becomes easy to approach. And I might look at, because nothing is just one story or one way. There are 5 different ways you can look at every single circumstance. In your life, it's 5 ways you can explain what just happened. And so we start growing in our capacity to really, it's like when you what's that, you have the rolling pin and you rolling the dough out, and the dough ball is only this big, but when you finish, or like you're making a pizza and you know how to do it the Italian way, then you got your pizza's this big. That same little ball is this big. So that's how you start to work through and look at every side of something. And then they have another thing where it's like to aerate
that mallet.
the bread or whatever, you roll that through and it punches little holes in it. And so we have to investigate thoroughly in this way. And that's the reflection on an object, but what happens at the end of that is you're no longer reflecting on the object. Actually, you become the subject of the inquiry. The object turns into a mirror. and you see yourself. And most people don't know this part of practice. And so we remain superficial. Since Buddhas are compassionate and dispel the fright of all beings, I entreat them to hold the remorseful fast and to free us from every fear. This is an aspect of reliance. So yes, we do have to do our own work, but part of relying is relying on the testimony of the overcomers. The things that you say, I'm working on this, I'm working on it. The things that you desire to overcome, you look to the overcomers for your example. And so we have to broaden our circle of spiritual friends. Not necessarily broadening our circle of human being physical friends, but even beings of different composition throughout all space and time. Otherwise, we leave most of our dough sitting on the table. We do. We like here with the other ne'er-do-wells that's in samsara, so we can only be able to help each other so much. That's just how that is, But there are other beings that we can rely upon that will help put us in the atmosphere or the sphere of their mind states, and we will elevate to those mind states. Go to a dirty, degrading place, and you hang around with those folks, your mind will degenerate. And I'm not just talking about degenerate human beings either, because in those same places, there are other kinds of beings with the same kind of mind that will drag your mind down further and further. And likewise, there are beings that elevate. So it's entreating all the beings of that kind of mind. I entreat them to hold remorseful fast and free us from every fear. May the Tathagatas keep at bay my negative karma and emotion. May the Buddhas always bathe me with the water of their compassion. May the Tathagatas keep at bay my negative karma and emotion. May the Buddhas always bathe me with the water of their compassion, that purity, that perfect compassion. I confess all unwholesome deeds. Now, here it comes. Whatever I have done in the past, whatever I'm doing in the present, these deeds I confess in full. And once you make this aspiration, they will come up for you. So if you were trying to put them down and not think about them, then don't do this. Because when you do, they will come up for you. And you'll see something, some action worked out on the drama on TV and say, that's you right there. Like, oh, dang. Yeah, that's how I think sometimes. Or that's how I would have responded to that. And then I'm seeing it acted out, and I'm like, that's not good. That's not good.
One of the things I find about comedy is the reason comedy makes us laugh is because we see ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we wouldn't laugh.
Yeah, and I mean, you can really address some terrible issues, through comedy, because it helps us to see ourselves and to see the ridiculousness of some of our ways, particularly our prideful ways, how ridiculous it is. We walk around like the emperor with no clothes on. I confess in full. I shall not conceal or hide harmful actions I have done. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to tell everybody what you do. I tell more than I should, but it's mostly to give you the courage to speak to yourself, to face yourself. It's to not conceal it and hide it from yourself, not acknowledge it, within yourself. And some things you do need to straighten out with others. Some you get it straightened out and you get it straightened out, And you said, well, how do you know which is which? This is the process of learning. So sometimes we learn things by doing things, or we learn things by seeing a similar situation and seeing the fallout. Sometimes, like you read where somebody's been unfaithful to somebody, and for whatever reasons cause that to occur, then they are remorseful and they get their act together. And the partner never knew about it. Why you got to tell him or her? Well, I mean, if they didn't know, they didn't know. Now, if they knew, there's other sets of amends you have to try to make that may work or may not work. But, it's no point in just deliberately hurting somebody in a way, that it's better if you just let sleeping dogs lie. Now, the danger in that is that they may find out and say, but you didn't tell me. If you had told me, we could have worked out this. It's that's just cause and effect, plain and simple. But if we were putting in these kinds of karmic imprints continually and not planting harmful seeds, I thought it, but I didn't do it. I thought it, but I didn't say it. I thought it and I felt justified in thinking it, even if it just let me feel this way for 5 minutes and I'll be better. I mean, it's like that. So that's why the understanding the imprint of words and thoughts is so important. It's so important. Yes.
It's interesting you say that because I work with someone and I can see this in myself. So when you see someone do something, you're like, been there, done that. She will have exactly what you said. I could have said this, but I didn't. And I realized the next level is just don't draw attention to it. And then the next level is you don't even have the thought. But it's so great to see her process that out loud and then realize, ooh, when did I do that? What is when? And to be able to use that as a teaching moment. I think this week's work was, what can you learn from everything? Well, she did that, but it's a great teaching opportunity for me to realize I can benefit and catch myself in that same stanza.
And if we do that, if we superimpose ourselves over the judgment that we, and the way we have examined a situation and our thoughts about it, as if that was me and I had done that, then we might justify hers because that's the way I feel about it. I feel about it too, But the thing is, the more we do this, I'm talking about conscientiously and deliberately, the more we will catch ourselves, and it doesn't make us feel bad about ourselves. It actually makes us feel clear about what is happening in this moment and what am I contributing to this moment. Can I add anything with my own, thoughts or with my own view, with my own aspiration? Says, In future times, I shall refrain from deeds that render me full of shame. In future times, so in the present, you know, I confess what I've done in the past. I won't conceal or hide harmful actions that I have done or that I'm doing. In the future times, I shall refrain from deeds that render me full of shame when I think back on them. Likewise, whatever merit I have gathered through body, through speech, and mind, by the force of this virtue's ripening effect. See, there's a ripening effect to every action, wholesome or unwholesome. There is a ripening effect. It doesn't always come in the same timetable, but every action has a ripening effect. Every action brings about some kind of fruit. And so now I'm thinking about merit that's accumulating through our body, speech, and our mind by the force of this virtue's ripening effect. May supreme enlightenment be attained. Tell me what I got to do to get enlightened. And I'll start doing this, and I'll start doing that, and I'll start doing the other. And now they're talking about this specific way of molding one's mind and character and refining your qualities. This is a way that supreme enlightenment can be attained. It causes the conditions for the ripening of enlightenment. You mean all I gotta do is give up thinking negatively about particular people?
Myself.
Yeah. It's important, like people who have say like what I don't like to say low self-esteem, but they don't think of themselves as having value or merit, or that is actually a very selfish kind of thought. It really is. It doesn't feel like it, and it doesn't present as it, but it takes getting out of yourself, constantly. And we talk about being embodied Dharma, and not being embodied, and it's almost like we're talking about two different things. So one embodiment is like feeling all of your pain and feeling all of your grief. That's one type of embodiment. It's a low type of embodiment, because one can embody what they can embody the truth of the Dharma, and it will uproot those kinds of feelings. So, we talk about being present with our pain. I think we have to be careful about this kind of notion of embodiment, like really being in here, really getting in the trenches, really feeling it. That if you don't have anything else, a wet sock on a string is something to grab hold to. But a better inner tube that will help you float on the water is if you embody these sayings that leave imprints that you can float upon in your mind. So you can see how words really kind of mess us up, or we take a definition or a way perspective, a way of looking at words, and we just paint the whole canvas with that view. This is when we talk about this kind of clarity that we're talking about. It's like setting that dial to penetrate into finer and finer aspects of everything. says, consumed by the flame of negative passion, sentient beings blaze like fire. They are refreshed and soothed by the moonlike light of the Buddhas. May those beings who are tied to existence, tightly bound by the rope of the cyclic round, unravel their bondage with a wisdom hand and quickly be freed from all suffering. Through the merit of actions of body, speech, and mind, through rejoicing in others' virtue, may every fruit of my prayers and practice unfold. So I was thinking about you last night, Ruth. And what came to me is how you show your love through food and the way, how much you put into preparation. I'm like, just look it up and throw it together because I'm hungry, or, or I feel bad for people who like to cook because I think you spend 2 hours cooking and we eat it in 15 minutes. What a waste. I'm not doing that. So I don't have I would not be able to be hospitable in that way in preparing food for people, but I think of how she shows her love for people through cleaning.
I was actually thinking about cleaning is another one of those tasks that for some people is the same.
I was sitting upstairs at the end table and I looked over, not a speck of dust on that glass table. And I said, Reva been here, because mine, they get dusty. I'm gonna tell you, and but it was more than appreciating. It was really recognizing a quality that was offered, and you didn't have to say, Reba, there's dust on the table, or, you don't have to say, let me sit down and make a menu, because she's thinking, I think on Thursday I'll fix this, and I'll put that with it, and I'll give them that, and you just come and sit down, and she got all this lovely stuff, and so there's something more given. It was given with, wholeheartedness, not half-heartedness, with wholeheartedness. Through the merit of actions of body, speech, and mind, through rejoicing in others' virtue, may every fruit of my practice and prayers unfold. Listen to this now. Through the merit of actions of body and speech and mind, through rejoicing in other people's virtue, may every fruit of my prayers and my practice unfold. So now that's saying that you're saying, let mine come to fruition to the extent that I'm wishing every other comes to fruition. So the way my mind might work with this is, the more I wish that for you, then the more I'll get it for myself. But that's really not what it's saying. It's simply setting up a condition for you to inherit based on your desire for other people. And I'm not sure that I'm always thinking that way. I can always tell you what's in something for me, even if it's something that I wanted done, but I didn't have the strength to do it, or the energy to do it, or the wherewithal to do it. And then I ask you if you will do it, and you do. But I'm glad you did it because I wanted it done, but I couldn't do it. See, it still circles back to us in these kind of deeply selfish rather than liberating ways. And I'm at the end of this now. May the pristine, peerless enlightenment be attained. And that's it. That's just a very, very short section.
So gorgeous. I know exactly why you relate it to the King of Prayers, because it's that same eloquence, but it's not just language.
Right.
It's beautiful language, but
If you unpack it, I mean, it sees right down into, it goes into you in such a deep way.
It's so feeling, Tony. I mean, there's so much feeling behind it. And it's a combination of the King of Prayers for me and Shantideva. That poetic. Yes.
Yeah. And we have to take it beyond the poetry of it. We have to actually break it down to how it becomes our living capacity to flow and operate, you know. And this is the ambrosia of holy beings. This is the ambrosia. This is the nectar of holy beings. And then along with this, there's a mantra that goes with it. And this is very, very, very short. This is like 1/3 of a page. Like I say, it's like 100 pages. So it's gonna cover everything from A to Z. It might take more than 2 months. But I am gonna make a copy for everybody, so that you don't have to. And we'll do the parts that we're reading, keep up if you can't, and I'll try not to make it too, and this is a good way to use the sutra to start stepping into meditation, because until the mind gets to this place, until these kinds of flowers are growing out of your mind, you're not in meditation. You're not there.
Still keeping track of self.
Yeah, oblivious to self, you know, or you just dropped into that negative hole. Buddhist calls it that one-sided emptiness. I am not doing that, but I'm not doing this, you know. I'm not thinking, and you can't get to the marvelous existence without it. And you may never have these kinds of, like, I'm not a poet. I have a hard time getting poetry in general, you know. But this really allows me, like a mirror, to see myself, to penetrate, you know. And with a daily cleansing of a little bit of that, I know I can be a different person. And that's what this is all about. It's not about self-development. It's about non-self-development. And if anybody else would like to say anything.
It strikes me, I'm looking at the document as you're reading, I'm scanning to find, you jumping verses, you did a short verse. That's actually a long section.
It is
a long section.
I mean, you got lots of things to go
It's a
through.
lifetime
It's
right there.
Yeah,
It's a lifetime too, no more.
it's 152 pages, but what I can see is that when I do my preliminaries in the morning, with my altar, while I'm still at the altar before I sit for meditation and on the practice, I go through the Brahma and really try to make that make space for that. I could see taking one of these verses into that practice daily. So start at the first verse, bring that into my practice. Verse, really consider these verses I'm looking at, you really have to consider these, sit with
Yeah.
them. So I can make that part of my daily, one verse at a time,
Mhm,
not 2 pages,
mhm.
one verse. And just next time, next verse, make it part of the practice. Do it with the around the hearts because it fits. So I can see myself using it that way.
He says that what's so good about this is that even if you can't get through the whole sutra, if you read a half of it, if you read a quarter of it, it said if you read one paragraph of it, if you read one sentence wholeheartedly and just stayed with that one, it would amount to more merit than you could garner from so many of the things that we're doing every day that we think matter for our spiritual practice, because we're planting we're creating imprints in the mind, and the imprints in the mind have a multiplying effect, you know. And so instead of me having to do 1 or 2 or 3 things good, when I have an imprint in the mind, and it multiplies out, you know, in the mind, it's more than me doing a good deed, you know. And so I just thought I would share it with you, and I think that many of you will enjoy this. It's the little foxes that spoil the vine, right? So we start with these big gross things, but we're powering down now. Can you see it? It's not really so much touch, not taste, not handle, not. It's really penetrating to a pure essence. And it takes me back to the chant, all beings are essentially pure by nature. So we're just coming back, you know, or we're uncovering our original nature, diving deep in this way. And it says, I too am essentially pure by nature, you know. And there's no good thing that Pannavati did. That's my nature. That's my nature. That's your nature. Pure as in Shunyata. Pure as in emptiness. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you and no danger. May you always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life.
Thank you, Venerable.